Scott Sabrin played for the Lightning last night. He just got called up earlier in the week, got called up on Tuesday, played last night for the Lightning, scored a goal. He is the 100th player in franchise history, between the two franchises, to play in a game for both the Crunch and the Lightning. That's quite a milestone, Allie, and I think that speaks to this whole development, right? That's what the minor leagues are all about. That's what the AHL is all about, to get these guys ready to play on that level, and the Lightning have done a fantastic job doing that. And again, I think it starts with the proper patience. They give these guys the time to develop naturally in the AHL before they pull them up.
As winter creeps into the 2025-26 American Hockey League season, it is time to look at the North Division in the Eastern Conference, and it's already a tight division race with over a dozen games into the season. I'm Allie Berube, the host of The a weekly look around the American Hockey League. Last week on the show, we talked about the Atlantic Division, but the tighter division to this point is the North, with the top 5 teams spread out by just 5 points to start the season. We will talk with 40-year Rochester broadcaster Don Stevens coming up on the show. But the Syracuse Crunch are leading the division through their first 13 games with 18 points, a 9-4, 0-0 record. Syracuse matched its best 10-game start to the season with an 8-2 record to that point. So we start our show with Stephen Fonte from WSYR in Syracuse. What have you seen so far from this team that's off to one of its best starts in franchise history? Certainly a lot of excitement there as Crunch hockey starts the season.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Allie. And I think that we've seen this team win in a variety of ways right now. We've seen a couple of comeback wins. We've seen them play well on the road. We've seen them play well with the lead. And, they're off to a 9-4 start. And I was talking with the play-by-play man, the voice of the Syracuse Crunch, Lucas Favali, the other day. And, I asked him, I said, what's the biggest difference between this year and what we've seen the last couple of years in terms of getting off to a fast start? And he's like, Steve, the offensive talent, the firepower on this team. You look at the first 2 lines, the 6 forwards that they have. They're all really good offensive players, right? It kind of goes without saying that they're scoring a lot of goals. They have to have offensive firepower, and they do. And it begins with Jacob Peltier, a former first-round draft pick. Dylan Duke is rolling right now. He just had a hat trick on Tuesday against Utica, first hat trick of his career. He's got 5 goals in the last week. Connor Geekie, who started the season up in Tampa Bay, he's a nice addition to this lineup. The power play is clicking right now. And, last year, this was the best defensive team statistically in the AHL. Now you kind of couple that, Brandon Helverson is back in goal. You couple that with the offensive firepower that they have, and it's a good combination, Allie. That's why they're off to a 9-4 start.
Yeah, certainly a lot to be excited about. And as you mentioned, if you compare offense with defense in a league like this, you certainly get dangerous. It's a long season, but getting off to such a fast start, certainly impressive. And I think when you look at division races, right, we can talk about this month in and month out, but there's so many shuffles and changes. And, Laval and Rochester right on the Crunch's heels already through about the first dozen games. But this Crunch team made the North Division Finals last year. How much did they learn from that experience? And do you think there's momentum? Because some of the other teams we've talked to across the league, right, there's so much change from season to season. I know for us here, the Hershey Bears got very young, and there's actually very few players who have played on the team from year to year. But is there momentum from this Crunch team that made the North Division Finals last year?
Yeah, I think the one area maybe that there is a little bit of momentum, if you will, is with the coaching staff. Joel Bouchard is back. All 5 coaches that they had last year are back, including the 3 on the bench. So I think that matters in terms of continuity. Now, there has been a lot of turnover with this team as well, and they've lost a couple of their veterans, their go-to guys. Daniel Wolcott played in Syracuse for 10 years. He was a fan favorite. This is his second home. He lives here. Gabriel Dumont announced his retirement in the offseason. So they've lost some really key pieces from last year to this year. But I think the fact that the coaching staff is back, 3rd year now for Joel Bouchard, the fact that they have that continuity for those returning players, I think that that's a welcome sight. So, this is a franchise that, yes, they seem to go to the playoffs year in and year out. They've been to the playoffs every year for the last decade, with the exception of COVID when there were no playoffs. The last time they finished first in the division, though, it's been 7 years. And I think that there is a quiet confidence inside that dressing room right now, Allie, that they believe they've got the pieces in place right now to at least contend for a North Division regular season title. As you said, a lot of hockey left to play, obviously, and we know how it works in the minor leagues with the AHL. You might lose guys not just to injuries, but you lose guys to call-ups. That can affect your team later on in the season. But right now, things are clicking. This team is off to a fantastic start, and they feel like they've got the ingredients in play here to make this quite possibly a special season.
Well, you hit on a lot of the high points here, and I think this is why I love the AHL level, right? Because there is so many variables, and I think that's what makes minor league runs so impressive. If you can string together some of these streaks, or like the best 10-game start, or matching the best 10-game start for Syracuse this season, it's kind of feels like you caught lightning in a bottle. I think about, you said, Joel Bouchard in his 3rd season now, the expectations maybe have increased, but how does Tampa Bay use the crunch? Because certain franchises care a lot about winning on the AHL levels. Others couldn't care less, and they just need to throw their prospects somewhere, and that's kind of the holding cell for them. But does Tampa care about Syracuse making long playoff runs?
Yes, absolutely. And I liked how you used lightning in a bottle. I don't know if you did that on purpose or not, but
you taught me how to write, so I did.
that very much applies here, Allie, with lightning in a bottle. Yes, the Lightning absolutely cares about winning at the AHL level. And I think that's why this has been such a great partnership, and why we see every year the Lightning make the playoffs and the Crunch make the playoffs. And I think that, listen, there is a benefit for the Crunch that the Lightning are so good and have been so good, because they don't necessarily need to rush their prospects up through the organization, and they haven't. And I think that they do have a philosophy within the franchise that not only do they want to be patient and let their prospects develop and then bring them up when it's the proper time opposed to rushing them, but I think there is also a philosophy that they want them to learn how to win. And the thought being, when they get to the Lightning, and if they've already won at other levels, namely the AHL, and they know what it feels like to go to the playoffs and actually play in big games, now you come to the Lightning and you're not going to be as wide-eyed, right, when you experience that for the first time. So, yeah, I'm going to throw a stat at you. Scott Sabourin played for the Lightning last night. He just got called up earlier in the week, got called up on Tuesday, played last night for the Lightning, scored a goal. He is the 100th player in franchise history, between the two franchises, to play in a game for both the Crunch and the Lightning. That's quite a milestone, Allie, and I think that speaks to this whole development, right? That's what the minor leagues are all about. That's what the AHL is all about, to get these guys ready to play on that level, and the Lightning have done a fantastic job doing that. And again, I think it starts with the proper patience. They give these guys the time to develop naturally in the AHL before they pull them up. They bring them up when they feel like they're ready, instead of, out of necessity, and try to rush them through the minors.
Yeah, and they always say the AHL is the 2nd best hockey league in the world, and certainly does prepare these Calder Cup playoff players into Stanley Cup playoff players. This is a special treat for me because, for a couple reasons, Stephen Fonte is one of the people who taught me how to be a sports broadcaster. So I love getting a chance to chat about this. And the Syracuse Crunch were the first AHL team that I ever saw in person as a student at Syracuse, going to those games. So certainly, I guess my love of the AHL started right there in Syracuse. So Steve, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, of course. And it's a pleasure for me as well. You and I have been able to work on a few projects here, and it's a pleasure every time I get a chance to talk with you.
Yeah, well, you are welcome on the A anytime, as you know.
Appreciate it.
In 2nd place in the North Division, Laval, who went to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2025 before getting swept by Charlotte on the Checkers way to the Calder Cup Finals. Continuing with Rochester, currently with 16 points, just like Laval, the Amerks are 8-6 record through 14 games. It gets them 3rd in the North Division. We sat down with team broadcaster Don Stevens, who has spent 4 decades in the American Hockey League. We are joined now by Don Stevens, the voice of the Rochester Americans in his 40th season. There's a lot to be excited about when it comes to the Amerks, obviously jumping out to a fast start here, one of the top teams in the North Division. What have you seen from this group so far as they start this season?
It's a typical roster we have right now that we've had for the last few years. Very young, very talented. So one kind of doesn't help the other, but the group is growing. It's getting better all the time. We do have some decent veteran players that are going along with that. But again, the biggest key is they're really talented, but also very young. I think the youngest team in the league.
Well, and it's hard to believe because it feels like every team has gotten younger and younger this year as the league, implements the vet rule and it kind of has adjusted some of these rosters. But when you look at the success that you guys were able to have last year under a first-year head coach and now coming back in his second season, of course, you went to the playoffs, lost to Laval. How much momentum did this group come into the year with, or is it so much new that that's in the past?
Well, we have had quite a few changes, and some of the veteran players are gone. Our captain was gone, and Brett Murray has been here for years and years. He's gone, we had to replace some, but it's kind of growing the Buffalo Sabres organization through the draft, and that has brought some players in. The good part is that they used to come in here, and if they were any good at all, they'd be gone and right to Buffalo. But the management of the organization now realizes that the players need to grow here before they go there. So that's really helped us start to develop some. Even though some of these players are 19, 20, 21 years old, they're into their second and third year here. So that's kind of helped too.
Yeah, certainly finding any level of stability in the AHL is usually a good thing for team success and also just for these players to develop. I think about some of the guys that are leading the way for you. Let's talk about your goaltending because you have one of the best in the league right now in Devon Levi. How has he performed so far? At one point, of course, he was tied for league lead in wins.
He's second now in wins, has six. He's won 6 of his 7 games played, so he's doing really well. Last couple of games, he didn't get much help, so he's given up several goals in the last couple of games. But he's a great one. He's going to be good. I'm glad to see them leave here for another year of development because even though he's been around for a while now, he's still very young himself, and so I think that's good for him. The goaltending in the organization is. We got a lot of goaltenders right now. They're just trying to sort it all out.
Certainly. And then when it comes to goal scoring, Trevor Kuntar, what has he brought to this team? 5 goals in 13 games and his ability to find the net.
Yeah, certainly. He's been, I think, a very pleasant surprise. Actually, it's kind of an interesting story. He's the second Kuntar to be here in Rochester. His dad, a goalie, was played here several years ago, quite a few years ago, and so it's kind of interesting. But he's, as I said, a pleasant surprise. He's been scoring some goals. He's done really well. Right now, the old good news, bad news in the American Hockey League is the great news is we got outstanding relationship and with our NHL team that owns us, and the bad news is that all the players belong to the Buffalo Sabres. So we're missing our top couple of goal scorers right now, and Kuntar has, along with Jake Leschyshyn, has done a nice job of filling in there.
I think some of those storylines that I think are so fun, right? Like you said, a father-son duo both coming through Rochester, and for you, 40 years as one of the team broadcasters. How special is that to see history kind of trend in different directions and watch some of these relationships come full circle?
Well, when I came here, I used to be friends with a lot of the players because I was somewhat close to their age. And then it wasn't too long before they were the age of my kids. And now they're the age of my grandkids. And so it's been an interesting development. But the thing is that the players, especially hockey players, and I've done all sports, and the hockey players are just special people. They're really so welcoming and willing to do whatever with people in my position and the rest of the staff and that. So they're great people. They're great kids and have enjoyed it. But it is kind of, you look back now and see how young they are, and you go, oh my God, where did the time go?
I feel that way too. I mean, the Bears, I used to look at the roster and say, all right, there's still some guys older than me. I feel good. And the longer you're in the league, I think it all changes and evolves. How have you seen the AHL change and evolve? About 90 years of hockey. It's a developmental league. It can be tough for leagues to stick. And if you've covered other sports, you know that too, right? Leagues come and go all the time. For the AHL to still be here, still finding success, and for a lot of these organizations, actually a financial success as well. What does that say about maybe the passion for hockey in this country, that it's not just the NHL, but the AHL is well supported?
Yeah, well, Hershey leads the way, and there's no question about that. And I feel like Rochester is not too distant of a second as far as leading this league, which is the biggest thing that I've noticed in 40 years is the growth of the league. When I came here back in 1986, it was 12 teams, and we had a lot of some teams weren't affiliated. Some had 2 or 3 NHL affiliates, so splitting the affiliation. So now it's 1 for 1 and 32 teams, and so that's really the biggest difference. The other part of it is the players themselves. We used to have at that time a lot of, let's call it, late 20, early 30-year-old players, and players that had wives and kids. Families were here, and now there's very few that have kids. Quite a few of them have wives, but not very many kids around like we used to have, as they're all so young. And like I said, we've got one that's still 19 yet, and 20 and 21 years of age. So that really is kind of the biggest difference, I think.
Why should people care about this level of hockey? I think it's easy, right? Some guys will end up straight in the NHL at a training camp, and that's your top level guys. But so many of those role players in the NHL come through the AHL at some point. But in your opinion, why should hockey fans care about this level of hockey?
Well, it's the top level of hockey basically, and it's referred to as the second best league in the world, and you can see players that as they get a little older, they might leave here, they'd go to Europe and play in the best league there and be outstanding stars. And so I think the proof is in the pudding there, that shows that this is the next best level there is to the National Hockey League. And for some of our cities like Rochester, it's not necessarily a major league city. We're just down the road from Buffalo, for example. So this is going to be about the top of what we get, the top level. So you consider that the Rochester Americans are the major league team in Rochester. And I think there's quite a few of our cities that are that way, with a few exceptions. For example, Cleveland obviously is a NBA city and an NFL city, and that, and so Hartford is, well, they're not so big anymore, I guess, but you get some of the others are bigger locales, but it's outstanding hockey. The players are hungry for making that next step, so they perform every night, night in and night out, and it's great entertainment value.
And I do think they do a lot in the community as well. And I think your point a little bit ago about the type of human that is a hockey player is a good one, because these are guys who care about their community, who are willing to sit there and talk with fans, and excited to know the community that they're playing for. And I know Rochester has such a strong tradition of that, just like Hershey does, that involvement in the community. For you, 40 years, and you've announced your retirement at the end of this season. I want to congratulate you on that, because that's no easy feat. What are you going to take away from this tenure of your life, and being able to be in this league for that long?
I really haven't figured that out yet. Actually, I've been in Rochester 40 years. It's my 58th year of broadcasting, so it's a long time. It's a lot of bus rides. So I don't, and I just haven't figured out beyond this. It's all going so fast. It's just like 3 weeks ago I was moving to Rochester. It feels like that. So people are always asking me, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do?" And I, you know what? I'm just trying to get through this year, slow it down, enjoy the year, enjoy the what I have here in Rochester, and then I'll figure that out after this year is over.
Well, you are welcome on the A anytime, and we've appreciated your time. I want to just look forward, because there's obviously a long season still ahead, and we don't need to speed through it just yet. But you guys have an interesting stretch here, a couple North Division games, but you're also in a stretch where you're going up against a lot of the Atlantic Division teams. How important can that be if this Rochester team wants to make the playoffs, push past the division and into the conference? Do you start talking about that, the tests of some of these early games here?
Our test right now is because we have so many players that are on recall. Itzhak Rosean was the player of the month for October in the American Hockey League. Defenseman Zach Jones leading the league in assists right now, and a couple other players. So that's really our test, is to see what players, as we talked about there a little bit ago, what players are going to step up and carry the load here. So that's really important. Yeah, we're so heavy in this league into playing in our own division that becomes extremely important. But those peripheral games, those little 2-point, which some people consider no big deal, games against the other division, you get down to the end of the year and you're only a point in or out of a playoff spot. Those become pretty important games. So every game is extremely important in this league.
Well, they'll appreciate that, all 72 of them.
Yeah.
Don Stevens, thank you so much for joining us.
Nice to meet you, and wish you best of luck in this show here.
Rounding out the division, Toronto in 4th with 14 points, Belleville in 5th with 13, Cleveland with 10, and Utica in last place. As we head into Thanksgiving in the North Division and it starts to take real shape, look for those top couple spots to flip early and often over the next couple weeks. But for now, that is a look at the North Division in the Eastern Conference of the American Hockey League. I am Ali Baribi, and this is The A.